Good morning to everybody who's listening in live, but also to welcome those who may be listening to this in record mode at their own convenience. So as Ed said, this is being recorded, so you can go back and look at the content of this and listen to the content again if you wish to do so. So to start us off, my name's Rhonda Smith, and I'm the coordinator of the CommBeBiz project. So this webinar is being held under the auspices of the CommBeBiz project, which some of you obviously will already be familiar with, and we look forward to connecting with you in many other ways going forward over the next 2 to 3 years. We've got lots of opportunities for you, and we'll mention a couple towards the end of the webinar. So today we're going to be talking about impact and creating impact. This, as many of you will be aware, is a very important word within the context of Horizon 2020, and to be absolutely frank, impact means a lot of things to a lot of people. There's no one core definition, and it's really important that everybody who's involved in both writing proposals and delivering projects, that we understand where we're going with this term and what we mean by impact. I just put this slide up from Anita Roddick because I think sometimes there's an impression that you need lots of money, you need celebrities, you need something, a really big opportunity or a big initiative in order to make that impact. Not true. As this says, if you think you're too small to have an impact, try going to bed with a mosquito. Anita Roddick, for those who don't know, is the founder of The Body Shop. So she didn't do too badly, did she? And the thing is, with impact, you know, we really have, it's in our own hands. The only limit to our imagination about how we can create impact is really down to us. But it needs commitment. And of course, every single minute of every single day of every single year, there is potentially an opportunity to make an impact, hopefully in very beneficial and very positive ways. This is a slide that I put up quite a lot in our training program, simply because when it comes to the overall thinking regarding communications and planning, there often is a feeling that it is all too complex. Where on earth do we start? Everything impacts on everything else, so where on earth are we going to go first? And I think the important thing to remember is that actually there are always hard choices to be made in terms of communications and in terms of creating impact. We have to be very targeted, and as General McChrystal says when he saw this slide, when we understand this slide, we'll have won the war. So it does seem perhaps that they weren't clear enough about, for example, strategic thinking and planning from the beginning, making appropriate hard choices and prioritizing those, and integrating communications, you know, from the start that would deliver the choice of targets, the choice of impact that a project and an initiative has made. So what exactly is impact? How can we define it in the context of research and science? And it can be, I think, to start you thinking about this. I don't have any definitive answers. This is very much that you have to work through in your own areas of science and research and delivery, and in each area of discipline. But maybe we can think of it in terms of these core bullet points. Maybe impact is, in the wider sense, changing the population's perceptions and or understanding around a particular topic. So and a good example within the bioeconomy would of course be genetically modified organisms. It could be the bioeconomy itself. How on earth are we going to actually explain to people the relevance of thinking more seriously about their choice of products, whether they're bio-based, based on biological, sustainable resources, that's going to help us come out of our petroleum-focused economy at the moment. Maybe in the wider sense, we can be thinking about fulfilling a need in society. Maybe we're going to fulfill that need much better, for example, than anything that's out there at the moment. Or maybe it's an unmet need that we've identified, and this is why we've won our particular project and why we want to design our research project and the communications around it in order to deliver that target and to make that impact. Maybe though, from a scientific viewpoint, impact is about changing the direction and or priorities of the scientific agenda, so that actually that agenda changes or is further targeted, so that we can be clear about the outcomes that we are wishing to achieve. So again, on the news today, there was about, again, this warning, global warning about the antibiotic resistance and about how that is changing. Maybe some of you in the projects that you're working on are looking at this specifically. So maybe your impact will be either driving that change or creating a new building block in order to change the direction of that scientific agenda. Maybe, however, your project is much more about building an evidence base so that the improvements can be made regarding the policy around a particular health issue, for example. Maybe it's around improving the quality of life. I saw a project the other day that's actually improving the feel of a walking stick for those with limited eyesight, so that actually they don't get sores on their hands. So that would, if they were able to do that and get acceptance through testing with those people with limited eyesight, that change in the feel of that stick so that more people use it more effectively, then that actually is contributing to the quality of life of that subsection of the population. Maybe our feeling is that we want to make a difference overall. Maybe we're trying to find alternative solutions. So all of these are potentially how we could define impact. Population, need, change of scientific direction, delivering improvements so that new policies can be generated and cascaded, or generically making a difference to a subset of the population or maybe the whole population. I don't think we can now be satisfied with this feeling of impact. I'll know it when I see it, and certainly not in the context of European-funded research and science. When I was starting to look at this topic, and I've done 2 or 3 presentations on this in other environments, I found an older report. It's about 6 or 7 years old now, that the European Commission generated and commissioned a few years ago. And it seemed to me that some of the points that they raised in that report are ones that we should not forget. Within every single project, every single initiative, every single institution or organisation, the time frame of delivery of impact will vary widely. So I think with some projects we may be able to track immediate impacts, and by that I mean within the time frame of the project. But maybe it is more likely that a project will create what we might call an enabling impact, i.e. the building blocks towards a measurable impact. And this may well be not achieved through the lifetime of that project. It might be at the end, plus at least maybe 3 to 5 years. And then in terms of societal impacts, where something comes out of being something extraordinary into something that's ordinary, i.e. it's reached a tipping point, then I think with most projects we would have to think in terms of 10 years at the end, post the end of a particular project. I've seen this in a number of projects I've worked on, particularly in health, where you're trying to drive a change amongst family physicians around prescriptions, or if you are working within the hospital setting, for example. I worked on something called the Malnutrition Universal Screening Tool, which is now the most used screening tool in care settings and in hospitals, and it took within the UK 7 years to get that really embedded into practice, and it's taken a good 10 years for that then to become the global screening tool of choice for this particular problem. And I think it's absolutely okay now, when we're writing proposals, when we're planning our proposals and delivering our projects, that we can talk very legitimately in terms of actual and potential impacts. And we need to be very precise about that when we are responding to the expected impacts that are shown in proposal documents, and I'm sure all of you have come across those. So just thinking again further about these impacts in the context of research and science, there are categories into which these impacts can be grouped. It's building on what I've said earlier. We can be thinking about policy and or standards in terms of safety or health rules. We can be thinking about scientific knowledge base that refocuses our efforts moving forward. It can be a technical innovation. We've designed a new widget that actually makes something more efficient, reduces energy use, for example. It could be societal in terms of citizen actions and understanding. It could be economic. We reduce the cost of something. Or it could be quality of life, whether that's for human consumption or whether it's for the built and natural environment. So again, when we're thinking about how we're going to describe our impacts, it's useful, I think, to really specify the categories into which we are placing our project. This report and others have really come down to 3 clear drivers of creating impact. And this is not rocket science. And it is very clear that if you don't plan right at the start of the project, and this means in stage 1 proposals, just as much as in your full stage 2 proposal, if you're looking at new writing proposals, awareness of impact from the beginning of a project is a prerequisite for its delivery. If you really look hard at many of the projects that are now flagged up by the European Commission and elsewhere as success stories, this is absolutely clear. The second factor is that you have to have people. You have to have people who are committed, have an understanding about this area of work. If you don't have the right people in place, you will not drive that key foundation to the delivery of actual and potential impacts. And the third factor is the development of partnerships. Most research projects, science and research projects funded in the bioeconomy will not work unless we have partnerships creating effective co-working and driving multi-actors across multiple functions in order to help reach that tipping point of greater understanding, behaviour change, or the development of a new policy or a new way of living. Just a quick reminder, I think everybody probably on this webinar and elsewhere are very clear that actually communications is now seen as a really important element of any project's planning and delivery. Article 38, you must promote the action via multiple audiences from the start in a strategic and effective manner. That doesn't mean to say that dissemination mustn't happen. Of course it must. That's the scientist's day job, and obviously the dissemination, the creation of research papers are also a very important and strong tool for creating wider communications. And both of these actions can obviously lead to innovation, the development of thinking about exploitation, and of course impact, as we've spoken about. The difference, I won't dwell on this because I think you know this. Dissemination is research results focus, which might be interim and final throughout the life of the project, but most of the key results will be at the end. The information goes to specialist outlets, it will be published in peer-reviewed journals, it will be scientists and groups will be looking at the journals with the greatest impact factors, and of course one of the drivers is to raise the profile of individuals, groups, institutes, as well as the research itself. And of course now we have the added driver of the need for open access to ensure that more and more people have access to this new knowledge that's been generated. Communications from the beginning. Everybody's interested in the question the research is asking. You've been given your 5 million euros, or whatever the project sum is, so you've obviously persuaded a lot of people that this question is worth asking and is relevant to a particular sector, a particular segment of the population. How the question is being answered and who is doing the asking and answering are really good and legitimate ways in which to drive the information out to key stakeholders and the general public. We know this from research and actually from our own day-to-day living, that actually if we tell the information in the form of stories, then it's going to work much better than any other route. There is scientific basis for this. We know that when stories are being told, that they help shape our own thinking, and that it will have the same effect on others too. And the brains, if you like, or the thinking, can synchronize between the teller and the receiver. And every communications project has a story to tell. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. It has characters, it has a setting, it has the stage, it has the drama about what is going well, what isn't going as well, what's being investigated, what the results are, and of course an end. We hope it's a happy ending, you reach the results that you hope to reach, and maybe you even get a sequel with some more funding in order to continue your lines of investigation. And we know that there are 3 ways to tell your story most effectively in order to create impact. And we call it in Minerva and in CommBeBiz VIP. Visual, interactive, personal. And you can think of many ways in which this can be done. Images leave a lasting impact. We remember much more of what we see, and we also remember more things in common. So with our neighbours, with our families, with people on social media, we will remember much more of visual items that we see rather than anything that we read or hear. And this can be done and disseminated in a multitude of ways. Some examples here: simple photographs, infographics, videos, animations, you name it. We must be more and more creative in the way that we think about communicating and disseminating the very valuable knowledge that we're generating. And as again, I'm sure all of us are aware that short videos that are uploaded to websites are getting more and more popular. This is why YouTube, Vimeo, and channels where you can upload these short videos are marvelous, because they can help you distribute in a short space of time some of the key messages and the key outcomes. And of course that translates into higher uptake. Measure that uptake, see what people are thinking and saying about what you've demonstrated to them, and you can build that into your portfolio of the creation of impact. Interactive. We know this as well, that if you involve people in doing things, you will learn much more effectively, and you will take away those messages and hopefully actually do something about it. Interactive quizzes, online surveys, games, not only for children but also for grown-ups, citizen science, serious gaming, you name it. Again, more and more projects are looking at investing and thinking more creatively about how they do this. Lots of examples online, 1 or 2 here on the screen. And make it personal. Make sure that you flag up the individuals involved, the individuals who are going to be impacted, by the development of the work that you're doing. Make it personal, demonstrate its relevance. Just think about what is the human or wildlife or environmental experience or impact of your project on each of those sectors, and then show it very clearly, utilizing images, facts, and those very important stories in order to create that engagement. So creating impact, in summary, from our perspective, from CommBeBiz's perspective, and from our experience over many years now dealing with research projects and scientists, these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind. We need to make choices, we need to set priorities, we need to be clear about what we are saying, we need to add a jolly good dose of creativity. As somebody has said before, imagination is more important than knowledge. Not sure that's absolutely true, but we do know that actually creating impact does require that little spark of creativity in order to drive it further than perhaps you were expecting it to go. But we also need to ensure that right at the start that we've put into place measurement of how we're going to achieve that impact and demonstrate that for research projects, for new proposals, really important. Show within your proposal that you're putting in time and effort to reflect on what you've done, how you're measuring it, and that you're going to monitor this on an ongoing basis and maybe actually change the way that you do things as a result of that reflection. But on top of all of this, in order to ensure that you've got the right people, the right resources, the right budgets in place, you not only need that vision and investment, but you need commitment in order to drive it from day one of the project to many days after the end of a project. And I think many of you will be within the bioeconomy. We have a real mission here, and hopefully everybody's fired up to deliver that. So one of the dates that you need to remember, we would like to see as many of you as possible at our first annual meeting, the Bioeconomy Impact 2016 conference, connecting people, projects and purse strings to deliver innovation and impact in the bioeconomy in Dublin in February next year, and we hope that many of you will be able to achieve that. So thank you very much for attending. These are ways in which you can connect with CommBeBiz, and we'd be delighted to engage with you further.